Arthur Smithers, an unassuming accountant from Surrey, never expected to be abducted by aliens, even less to become a prize in an alien mating ritual. But here he was, on planet Zog, standing awkwardly on a platform of glowing goo. How did he get here? It all started with a wrong turn on his way to Tesco. One minute he was searching for biscuits, the next a beam of light whisked him away. Now, surrounded by 7-foot-tall aliens with shimmering skin, Arthur felt utterly out of his element. The air crackled with an unknown energy. Arthur nervously adjusted his glasses, which had gone slightly askew during his intergalactic journey. He wished he hadn't skipped breakfast that morning. A cuppa and some toast would have been most welcome right now. The alien women of Zog were, to put it mildly, an unusual sight. Their skin shimmered with all the colors of a rainbow, constantly shifting and changing like a lava lamp. Their eyes, large and black, resembled distant nebulas filled with tiny twinkling lights. They moved with an ethereal grace, their long, slender limbs flowing like seaweed in a gentle current. Arthur, being a man of simple tastes, found himself both fascinated and a bit terrified. He'd always been more comfortable with a nice cup of tea and a good book than with, well, shimmering, 7-foot-tall alien women. He tried to blend into the background, hoping to avoid attracting attention. However, fate, it seemed, had other plans. The air vibrated with a low hum, a sound that seemed to resonate through the very bones of the planet. The futuristic cityscape around Arthur shimmered with an otherworldly glow, casting long, eerie shadows, and a hush fell over the gathered aliens. Their eyes, or what Arthur assumed were eyes, glowed softly in the dim light, reflecting a sense of anticipation and curiosity. A particularly tall alien, adorned with elaborate head fronds that swayed gently with each movement, stepped forward. Her presence commanded attention, and the crowd seemed to hold its collective breath. She held aloft a glowing orb, which pulsed in sync with the platform beneath Arthur's feet. The light from the orb seemed to dance and flicker, casting strange patterns on the ground. Suddenly the orb flashed, bathing Arthur in a beam of light. The intensity of the light was almost blinding, and he felt a strange warmth enveloping him. A chorus of high-pitched trills erupted from the assembled aliens. The sound was both melodic and disconcerting, like a symphony of alien birds. Arthur, blinded by the light, fumbled for his glasses. His vision blurred, and he could barely make out the shapes around him. "Blimey," he muttered. "What in the world was that?" His voice sounded small and insignificant in the vastness of the alien landscape. The head-fronded alien approached him, her expression unreadable. Her eyes, deep and mysterious, seemed to pierce through him. Through a series of clicks and whistles, which Arthur assumed was some form of alien language, she declared, "Congratulations, Earth male, you have been chosen!" The words, though foreign, carried a weight of significance. Chosen? Chosen for what? Arthur stammered, completely bewildered. His mind raced with possibilities, none of them comforting. He soon learned, through a series of increasingly awkward gestures and some rather creative interpretations of the aliens' clicks and whistles, that he had just won the Zagonian equivalent of a mating ritual. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. And the prize? None other than the chieftain's daughter, a rather lovely, in an alien sort of way, young Zagonian named Glar-Lala. Her appearance was striking, with iridescent skin that shimmered in the light and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies within them. Arthur's mind reeled as he tried to comprehend the situation. He had come to this planet on a simple exploratory mission, and now he was being told he had won a wife. The absurdity of it all was almost too much to bear. The aliens around him began to celebrate, their trills and whistles creating a cacophony of sound. It was clear that this was a momentous occasion for them, even if Arthur felt completely out of his depth. He looked at Glar-Lala, who met his gaze with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. Despite the strangeness of the situation, there was something undeniably captivating about her. Arthur took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. How was he going to explain this to his colleagues back on Earth? More importantly, how was he going to navigate this unexpected twist in his life? As the celebrations continued around them, Arthur and Glar-Lala stood side by side, two beings from different worlds brought together by fate. Whatever the future held, it was clear that Arthur's life would never be the same again. Section 4: Interspecies communication more than meets the eye, literally. Glaa-Lala, despite her initial reservations about being paired with a bewildered earthling, approached Arthur with a sense of curiosity. She had heard many tales about humans, their peculiar habits, and their unique way of communicating. This was her first direct interaction with one, and she was both excited and apprehensive. Her attempts at communication, however, proved to be more complicated than either of them anticipated. The initial moments were filled with awkward silences and puzzled looks. Arthur tried to decipher the meaning behind her gestures, while Glaa-Lala struggled to understand his spoken words. Zogonian language, it turned out, relied heavily on telepathy and subtle shifts in skin pigmentation. Each color and pattern conveyed a different emotion or intent, a complex system that was second nature to Glaa-Lala but utterly foreign to Arthur. Arthur, being both non-telepathic and rather pasty, was at a distinct disadvantage. He had no way of reciprocating the telepathic signals or changing his skin color to communicate back. This left him feeling somewhat inadequate and frustrated. "Right, then," Arthur said, trying to maintain a semblance of composure. "Perhaps we could start with the basics. My name is Arthur. Arthur Smithers. What's yours?" He hoped that by starting with something simple they could find common ground. He pointed to himself, then to Glaa-Lala, hoping this universal gesture would translate. He had read somewhere that pointing was a basic form of communication understood by many species. Glaa-Lala responded with a series of clicks and whistles, a sound that was both melodic and alien to Arthur's ears. He couldn't help but marvel at the complexity of her language, her skin flashing a vibrant shade of emerald green. This color, Arthur would later learn, signified curiosity and openness in Zogonian culture. Arthur, interpreting this as a sign of encouragement, pressed on. He felt a small sense of victory, believing they had made a breakthrough. "So, Glaa-Lala, tell me a bit about yourself," he asked, genuinely interested in learning more about her and her world. "What do you do for fun around here?" He continued, hoping to find some common interests. Knit, watch telly, collect stamps. He listed a few hobbies, wondering if any of them would resonate with her. Glaa-Lala stared at him blankly, her large eyes reflecting a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Her skin shifting to a perplexed shade of indigo blue. This color, as Arthur would later discover, indicated that she was trying to process and understand his words. It was a slow and challenging process, but both were determined to bridge the gap between their worlds. Over time, through trial and error, they began to find ways to communicate. They shared moments of laughter and understanding, realizing that despite their differences, they had much to learn from each other. Their initial struggles gave way to a budding friendship, one that would pave the way for greater interspecies cooperation and understanding. Arthur and Glaa-Lala's journey was just the beginning of a new chapter in human-alien relations, proving that with patience and effort, even the most challenging barriers could be overcome. Section 5. When cultures collide: tea time and tentacles. Life on Zog was nothing like Arthur had ever experienced. The planet was a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds, with landscapes that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Floating mountains, bioluminescent forests, and rivers that flowed upwards were just a few of the wonders that greeted him daily. The Zogonians, being a highly advanced species, communicated telepathically, traveled in flying saucers, and had technology that made Arthur's head spin. Their cities were a marvel of engineering, with buildings that could change shape and size based on the needs of their inhabitants. Their diet, however, was something Arthur found particularly challenging to adapt to. The Zogonians dined on nutrient-rich slime, a substance that looked and smelled as unappetizing as it sounded to human sensibilities. Arthur, on the other hand, still struggled to send a text message, often finding himself baffled by the simplest of technological tasks. His phone seemed to have a mind of its own, and more often than not, it won their daily battles. He considered the bus a daring mode of transport, a relic of a simpler time when wheels on the ground were the norm. The idea of flying saucers as a daily commute was still something he couldn't quite wrap his head around. And when it came to meals, Arthur preferred his food solid and, if at all possible, accompanied by a nice cuppa. Tea was his sanctuary, a small piece of earth he could cling to in this alien world. Determined to bridge the cultural divide, Arthur took it upon himself to introduce Glaa-Lala to the wonders of earthling culture. He believed that if he could share his traditions, they might find common ground. Arthur started with tea, naturally. He explained the ritual, the history, and the comfort it brought to millions of people on Earth. He hoped that this simple act could be a bridge between their worlds. He meticulously prepared a pot of his favorite blend, explaining each step to Glaalala as he went: the boiling of the water, the steeping of the leaves, the anticipation of that first sip. Glaalala, however, seemed less than impressed with the concept of steeping dried leaves in hot water. She examined the tea with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "Why not just drink the water?" she communicated telepathically, her thoughts tinged with genuine confusion. Her skin flashed a puzzled shade of lavender, a color Arthur had come to recognize as her way of expressing bewilderment. Undeterred, Arthur moved on to other earthly delights: cricket, Shakespeare, the Beatles. He explained the rules of cricket, recited sonnets, and played classic Beatles tracks, hoping to spark some interest. Even his attempts at sharing his favorite biscuits, chocolate digestives, in case you were wondering, were met with polite but bewildered refusal. He had hoped the sweet treat might be a hit. But Glaalala's reaction was one of polite confusion. She examined the biscuit, sniffed it, and then handed it back with a telepathic message of thanks, but no thanks. "Why are you so obsessed with putting things in your mouth?" Glaalala inquired telepathically, her curiosity genuine and her tone gentle. Her skin now a vibrant shade of orange, indicating her deep curiosity and slight amusement at Arthur's customs. Arthur began to wonder if he'd ever bridge the chasm that separated him from his alien bride-to-be. He pondered the vast differences between their worlds and whether love could truly conquer all. Despite the challenges, Arthur remained hopeful. He believed that with patience and understanding, they could find a way to blend their cultures and create a life together that honored both their traditions. After all, love was a universal language, and Arthur was determined to speak it fluently, no matter how many cups of tea it took.